I'm Adrian Boysel, the Love Gangster, and you're listening to the Headsmack podcast.
You are listening to conversations with misfits, mavericks, and trailblazers.
Hey, welcome to the Headsmack podcast. My name is Paul Pavolny, and I'm excited to have a fellow brand guy on the podcast today, Adrian Boysel. So glad to have you, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate being here.
Adrian is a social impact entrepreneur and award-winning designer, certified and passionate about content creation and digital marketing. He's done a lot of stuff. He's just a young whippersnapper, but he's had quite a career. And so I look forward to hearing all about it today and sharing some head smacks with you with Adrian the Misfit. Adrian, so glad you're here. And I usually, I'm into superheroes. I love origin stories. And so I like to start with people's origin stories. And so you can go as far back as you want to. But tell me a little bit about the making of Adrian Boysel, the Love Gangster.
Yeah, so I grew up in Sacramento, California with my grandparents. My dad and my mom split when I was just a baby. My dad took me, my mom took my sister, and they both had just very rough, young, I would say late teens and early 20s. And so they were not ready to be parents. And so my grandparents raised me. And then when I was 4 years old, my grandfather passed away right in front of me, died of a heart attack due to alcohol. And that was kind of my wake up to life and to the real world and smack of reality. It was a big first head smack for me, right?
Yeah.
And
Wow.
it was a really big day. And so I ended up going to live with my dad and my stepmom. He had remarried by that time. And at that time, she was about 21, 22 years old, didn't know how to raise kids, had never had her own kid, and inherited me. And my dad was off being Mr. Businessman, being Mr. Partier like he always was, and wasn't around that much. So it was pretty much my stepmom and I. And I was a very headstrong kid that was missing his mom, missing his grandfather, and even missing his grandmother, who was really the mom to me up until that point. And so grew up in a broken home, and there was a lot of consequences of that. Went to school, got in a lot of trouble, didn't listen to the teachers at the back of the room, drawing all day. Been a lifelong artist. That's just who I've always been drawing, doing my own thing. Started my own business because my grandfather was an entrepreneur, had a video business. My dad took that video business over for a while. So graphics, video, art, anything like that was right in my wheelhouse all the way through up until high school, and ended up being on the streets at 16 years old, and lived on the streets for nearly a year until I met a mentor of mine who took me off the streets and really helped me out. Ended up meeting my mom at 17 years old, my biological mom, for the first time since I was a baby, and started to build a relationship with her. And that was off to a rocky start as well, and went through a lot of highs and lows, but that mentor was really there for me. He's no longer with us today, but he was a huge part of me healing my relationship with my mom, and really getting back into contact with my dad and that side of my family and my grandmother. And so just a lot of challenge, a lot of struggle. There was a lot of physical, verbal, emotional abuse that was happening in my household due to my dad and my stepmom. And I had to learn to become very resilient. Got in a lot of fights as a kid, was pretty fearless about almost anything. There really wasn't anything you could put in my way that I was going to be scared to do, whether it was jumping dirt bikes or bicycles or skateboarding, whatever it is. I was always doing extreme sports, and I loved to fight. There was just something about fighting that was kind of a passion of mine, but I just had a lot of anger in my heart. And when I found the Lord, when I was, I always knew the Lord, but I wasn't walking with it. And I didn't really call myself a Christian until I was about 20 years old when I got baptized, thanks to an employee of mine. He invited me to his church, and that radically kind of changed my whole life and changed my whole walk. And I started to get a lot of healing that way.
Wow, that's amazing. So you mentioned that pretty rough and crazy upbringing. What led you to the homelessness? What was that trigger that led you there?
So my dad basically, I wasn't doing great in school, and my dad had very strict, expectations of me. And at one point he got fed up with the fighting and said, "Pack your stuff and get out, or I'll pack it for you." And I was like, okay. So I packed a bag and started walking. And I had just found, part of the catalyst of that was I had just found my mom around that time, and kind of located my mom and my sister, and he was not happy about that. So I ended up calling them and kind of letting them know what was going down. And getting to start to build a relationship with them. But yeah, it was just the father that wanted no sense of responsibility and discipline in his life.
Yeah. Wow. And
Hmm.
so you got out of that. You mentioned the mentor. What were some of the things that the mentor started instilling into you, and where did that relationship come about?
He had a lot of really great sayings. Don't pull the mask off the old Lone Ranger, and don't cuss a cat for being a cat. And I've used that throughout my whole life. When people act a certain way or disappoint me or act out of integrity, I'm not surprised, right? Don't cuss a
Yeah.
cat for being a cat. So a lot of principles like that, but he taught me how to draw on a level that I had never drawn before, like chiaroscuro, like black and white type of charcoal drawing. He taught me
Yeah.
about just building relationships with people. He was an avid reader. He had read thousands, literally had read thousands and thousands of books. I mean, his house probably had 500 books, but
Yeah.
thousands of books. He read, 2 or 3 books a week. And that's all he did. He was retired. And so he didn't work a job. And so he just read all day. Gifted musician. So I just learned about life, about struggles, about his pain, and just some of his viewpoints on life. And he grew up in the psychedelic era, right? David
Yeah.
Bowie's and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the Deadheads and all that. He grew up in the 70s and 80s. He was born in 55. And so he grew up in the 70s and experienced acid and all those things. And I was super straight laced my entire
Yeah.
childhood, my entire teenage years, and even into my late teens and early 20s. I mean, it wasn't until I was like 21, I think, where I ever tried pot for the first time. I
Really?
was
Even from
very
being homeless, even during the homelessness, you never went into that. Wow.
well. So I was always told that my mom wanted nothing to do with me. And that was a huge shot to the heart. And I was also told that she was a total drug addict. And that was why she wanted nothing to do with any of her kids, because she has 5 other kids on top of me. And so I thought, okay, well, drugs are bad. And I watched my grandfather die in front of me because of alcohol. So I was like, well, alcohol's bad. So I'm going to avoid both of those like the plague.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And so this mentor, maybe you shared it, and I missed it. How did you meet? How did you meet him?
He was actually my best friend from high school's uncle. And I crashed on my best friend's couch one night and was woken up in the middle of the night by his buddy Dan, who poured a bunch of mustard on my mouth while I was sleeping. And I was at a low of lows, of course,
Oh
right?
wow.
First night alone. And had it out with him in the living room. And they told me, you can't stay here. And so his uncle showed up the next day, and I met him and we immediately hit it off. And he's like, you need somewhere to stay? And I was like, yeah. He's like, I need somebody to house sit for me while I go to my friend and take care of him. He's got diabetes. And I was like, cool, no problem. And we just, the art and history, I'm a huge history buff. And he was, I mean,
Yeah.
I could ask him anything about Sacramento or history, and he would just run for hours on facts and stories. And he was just an amazing storyteller.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he also was a creative, and of course, you were a lifelong doodler and artist and whatever. When did you realize the potential of your creativity?
Well, what's funny about that is my stepmom told me when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I don't want to say the wrong thing in terms of like she wasn't a horrible person. She just was. She didn't have the tools or the resources or the support from my dad to really be the parent that she could have been to me. So she did the best with what she could. But there were some really sweet, tender, loving, caring moments from her that I got to experience in my life. And one of the things that she said to me was, Adrian, I don't know what you're going to do someday when you grow up, but I know it's going to have something to do with computers and art, because I was just obsessed with
Yeah.
drawing. Every Easter was my favorite holiday because I got boxes of crayons and colored pencils, paper in my Easter basket every year. So that was the holiday of all holidays for me. So she knew I was an artist, and she saw this rise of computers, and she told me that then. So she had planted a seed in my subconscious all the way back then. And so when I
Yeah.
was in high school, I was doing video production, started with beginner, intermediate, and then advanced video production. Won an award out of all the kids in the whole school for the whole area. Ended up getting to go to this news station, got to go to these, what they call the Sacramento Public Relations Awards, and meet all these news anchors and celebrities and things like that. And my passion for video was going to follow my grandfather's footsteps. My dream was military and then doing video production. Those were the two things I wanted to do. And I
Yeah.
knew my art would somehow kind of figure into that, but that was just a hobby and that was just something I did for fun. Well, when I got out of high school, I was doing nightlife promotions as a side hustle on top of selling phones, selling cars, selling home loans. Throughout that whole time, I had been promoting club events, and I had gotten another mentor named Larry, and he started asking me to do nightclub flyers. I'd already been doing some business cards for my dad's insurance business and little stuff in Photoshop, which my brother helped
Yeah.
me discover. But I started really developing a knack for Photoshop and just doing design in general. And I kind of became obsessed with it. So I had this video skill. Now I have this other skill that I've stacked of graphic design plus my artistic abilities. And I was just really kind of creating something special. And after about 2 years of hanging out with my boy Larry, my mentor every day, he was like, dude, you need to shut this nightlife thing down and just go all in on your graphic design. And I was like,
Wow.
dude, that's a great idea. He's like, you can make so much money doing that and printing. There's no reason why you need to be doing this nightlife stuff anymore. It's not for you. And I was like, cool. And so I took his advice. I followed it. I implemented it immediately, handed off the nightlife business to my friend Natalie, who still kind of runs it almost to a degree today, and just went all in on my graphic design business. And yeah, the rest is pretty much history on that.
Yeah, yeah. And so how did the graphic design business go? Like, were you serving a certain clientele? You mentioned you did the business cards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Was there a market that you were serving best with that?
Yeah. So this is a great part of my story. So I actually had some twists and turns there. I was on a great track. Things were going well. About 6 months earlier, before I actually started that business, while I was doing my side hustle just to try to survive, I got into a car accident and I had let my insurance lapse because I couldn't afford it.
Oh,
And
wow.
I had been staying at my dad's briefly for like literally a month. And I called my dad, help me, help me. What do I do? And he's like, he was an insurance agent. He's like, hey, I want you to take your car, tow it to your house, get a policy with Esurance because it's all online today. Grab that policy. And then I want you to wait 2 weeks and then you're going to file a policy and you're going to say the accident just happened right around the corner from your house. And I was like, okay. I was like, can I get in trouble for that? He's like, yeah, but if you listen to my instructions, you'll be okay. Long story short, I was not okay. Ended up getting in trouble for it. Spent
Oh,
30
wow.
days in jail, 31 days in a jail in the area that I'm in. I took that time. And so I remember standing on the back patio with my boy Larry, who owned this bar that I was designing the flyers for. I was like, my life is over. It wasn't like actually crying, but I was just like down and depressed. And he's like, my life is over. I can't believe I'm listening to my dad and he's ruined my life and I'm never going to be able to escape him. He's like, listen, dude, you need to separate yourself from your dad. This is not the end of your life. It's just a misdemeanor. You do your time and focus on becoming the best that you can while you're there. Read books, like level yourself up and use this as a turning point for your life. And I was like, okay. And again, I listened to everything he said. So I read Donald Trump's book, which was a huge waste of time. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read a bunch of different books in there, like 3 or 4 books in 30 days. And
Yeah.
I just filled myself up and I wrote my entire business plan for what at the time, what was called Roseville Printing. I
Yeah.
got out 31 days later. I'd been working out every day. I mean, it was in great shape. And I started Roseville Printing from a tiny little, I'm not exaggerating, 100, maybe 100 square feet with no window in a little office suite where I had a futon couch. And I slept on that futon couch for 3 months and worked my freaking
Wow.
tail off till 2 or 3 in the morning, going to the club, handing out business cards that were red that had 3 promotional offers on the business cards. Everybody at the club, handing them out to people, just like trying to network and build as many relationships as I can. Larry's referrals. And within 6 months, I opened up a retail store in the town that I grew
Wow.
up in that had over 50,000 cars going by. And so I
Wow.
brought in my friend from high school who was just a young kid who had just graduated, and I made him a sign shaker. And then I got a girl and Daisy Dukes in a wife beater with blonde hair. She was out there shaking the sign, and I was making like $500 to $1,000 a day at 19
Wow.
years old, you know?
Wow.
And so my tactic and strategy was I'm going to be the same day graphic design, web design, sign guy where people can come in, sit down, I'll design their stuff right there in front of them and show them
Oh,
how it all
wow.
goes together, design their logos, their brands, their flyers, their signage, all of it, and they'll walk away with it in hand. And so I did
Wow.
that. And in 2.5 years, I had over 3,000 clients. I ended up making some stupid business moves and moved that location to downtown Sacramento, thinking, well, now I got 3,000 square feet, but lost 70% of my business clientele that I had in the town that I grew up in. I thought they were going to
Oh,
follow
wow.
me. Like,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
going to come with me, right? I could have just opened up 2 locations and had blown up even more. So I ended up
Right.
selling that business because of all the pressures and stresses and the ups and downs and roller coasters. And I sold that business to an old boss of mine with the intention of still being the CEO of that company. And come to find out, he just wanted to take my business model, take my strategies, take all my processes and wrap them into his current direct mail business and steal my IP basically
Oh,
and
man.
buy it for as little as he possibly could and just push me out by being
Yeah.
extremely abusive. And I just had no tolerance for that. And so I resigned from my own company after 40 days after selling it. I resigned and
Wow.
was okay, well, now what? And then that's when the whole marketing journey started with Google ads. And I already knew SEO. And I was like, I'm going to do the marketing thing now. I see
Yeah.
online marketing and digital marketing. This is 2011, right? Before the big boom. I'm like, I
Yeah.
see digital marketing being the future, and Google Ads is like fishing with dynamite. I mean, this is going to be such a no-brainer.
Well, it sounded like you got pretty fired up and pretty motivated after your stint in jail, and you had time to work out, to read books. Was there anything in particular out of the books that you remember that stood out, that set that fire underneath you?
Yeah, I think the rich dad and the poor dad in the story of Rich Dad Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki was a huge lesson for me. And I
Yeah,
was looking at the people in my life and who I had in proximity with me. And I think that was probably the biggest lesson is I had this poor dad who struggled, who was unreliable, who was inconsistent, who partied, who drank, who chased women, who gawked at women, who just objectified women. And then I had these men in my life, thank God, literally the Lord put these people in my life, like my Uncle Jim and my Uncle Bob, who were strong male influences, right? They were,
yeah,
turn your hat on forward, boy. Don't put your hat on. You look like a little punk like your dad, right? Making comments like that. Dirt bikes, camping, fishing, shooting. These were real men. And then I had Larry as well, who was, prison guard, gang task force, just incredibly successful entrepreneur, larger than life character. I mean, 6'4", 280, 300-pound dude, and just shredded, tattooed from, pretty much neck all the way down. Just a titan, larger than life titan. And so I was like,
yeah,
those are the fathers and the kind of the mentors of my life. And I want to start living and doing things the right way, which is usually the hard way. But I'm not
yeah,
afraid of the hard things. So I'm just going to do things the hard way, even though it's might take me longer. And I'm going to do things the right way. I'm not going to try to take shortcuts like my dad did. And the one thing my uncle told me, like my Uncle Bob, he said, your dad could have been really successful if he had just stuck to one thing. But the problem
wow,
is he jumped from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, and he never stuck to it long enough. And so when I got into graphic design, I was like, this is it. I'm going to be
yeah,
a graphic designer for the rest of my life. This is what people are
yeah,
going to know me for. They're going to know me as a creative. Now, obviously, I have skills stacked on top of that. And, I do a lot more than just that now. But I've stayed in the same industry of marketing and, helping small businesses and even large corporations now that whole entire time. I haven't jumped from industry to industry to industry or job to job.
yeah. And so there's quite a bit of difference between just being a designer and being a marketer. Where did that transition happen to you when you realized the difference, and what did you change about what you were doing to transition into a marketer?
Well, you're going to see a theme here. So in 2011, Larry called me. I was in Illinois helping my mom deal with a family crisis there. And I had been out there for about 8 months. And he calls me up. He's like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, just got done doing a Google training, learned how to do Google ads. I know how to do SEO and, all this stuff now. And I've really learned a lot. I already know signage, like got so many skills that just going to start helping people to continue to do graphic design and marketing stuff. And I'm going to focus more on the digital marketing side of things. And he's like, oh, you should come back out here. I'm working for a home improvement company. We're doing about 800 grand a year. I'm running their sales division. I think you could come run their marketing division. Why don't you come out here and help me? And I'm like, sweet. So I bought a freaking RV, drove out to California, back home, and immediately started with a company called Central. And I became their marketing guy in about 30, 45 days, took over all their marketing, yellow page ads. Literally the pitch books, presentation books, sales books, website, vehicle graphics, storefront graphics, yard signs, direct mail. All their online ads, Yelp ads, Google ads, SEO. I was doing
Wow,
everything
wow,
for them. And they happened to be, successful enough to where they were able to hire some really high level players. And I got another mentor.
nice.
And that mentor's name was D. Bradford, Dighton Bradford. I don't know why he went by D. Bradford because his name, Dighton, I always thought was the coolest name. And so he went by D. Bradford. And I bring him in a brochure that I designed. And we had grown close over like the first 30, 45 days. And I show him this brochure I designed. I was like, check this out, Dighton. And he's like, wow, this is really beautifully designed. He goes, can I ask you a question? I'm like, yeah. He goes, what's the
Oh,
point?
wow.
I was like, what? What do you mean, what's the point? He's like, what's the point of this brochure? What's the objective? And I was like, to buy a mattress? I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And he's like, no. Tell me in here where in this brochure it says to buy a mattress. And I was like, and my jaw kind of like hit the floor in that moment. I'm like, he's like, let me tell you something. You have a knack for marketing and some of the content in here is really great. He's like, but there's no strategy
Yeah,
behind this. There's no scientific process. There's no proven framework that you have here. He goes, this is what you're missing. And I was like, what? And I was like, will you teach me? And he's like, yes. So for literally two
wow.
years, I sat side by side of him side by side with him in his office. And I literally asked him probably a billion questions, more questions I could ever even keep track of. How does this work? And how does that work? And what's logos, pathos, and ethos? And what's the logical, ethical, and
Yeah.
emotional? And what's the science of marketing? And how does the analytics work? And so I just pulled, and he'd been doing marketing already for 38
Yeah.
years at that point. And he's long since been retired, because that was 2011, 2012. And so, he was like, you just need this proven process. So many people out there are just doing marketing like fly by the seat of their pants, or just trying to come up with good ideas and throwing stuff at the wall and hoping that it sticks. That's not a strategy. You need to have a proven marketing plan. What is your marketing plan? And so that's when I started to learn the marketing planning process, and I started getting my hands on marketing books. There were marketing planning books, Ultimate Sales Machine, things like that. And I just really started to sharpen my axe around marketing planning. And then after about, around that 2.5-year mark, he ended up leaving, and so did I within a couple months. And that company at that point was already doing about 22 million a year between the marketing that I was doing and the sales that Larry was doing. And we just blew that company up. And I left to go start my agency. And so in end of 2014, I went and got a little office with my little brother. And, towards the end of 14, beginning of 15, opened up this office and started doing rank and rent websites for artificial turf, HVAC, cell phone repair, limousines, all that. Started building these rank and rent websites, and was making a lot of freaking money. I mean, I was doing like $25,000, $30,000 a month in recurring revenue. And I was like, this is huge. And then in 30 days, I lost $20,000 a month in revenue, as some of these people went out of business, overextended their things. And so next thing you know, I'm like struggling and trying to figure out how to pay the bills. And I'm like, okay, I got to ditch this rank and rent thing and just go start doing client work. Thanks to one of my friends who was in ministry, Corey. He's like, dude, the rank and rent stuff is cool as like a side thing, but you need to go out and help clients. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I started bringing on more clients, and there's the roller coaster of that journey too.
Well, I think something that you shared earlier that I want to circle back to is, you were creating design for design's sake to be beautiful, right? And you were just being an artist at that point. You weren't a designer. It was, and I think that happens for a lot. It happened to me as a young designer. Is I would create stuff that was cool, like really cool. It was Photoshop. It had textures. It had bevels. It had drop shadows. It had all the cool stuff, and like it impressed other people that like cool stuff, but totally missed the point. And I think that's the difference between an amateur and a pro, and that's a difference from a cheap designer that will give you endless revisions and will give it to you for super cheap, and they'll turn it around really fast. Is they're not applying any kind of strategy to the thinking behind the design. They'll just create something that'll wow you for its coolness and how good it looks, but not be effective. It will miss the point. Just like that mentor of yours, said, yeah, what's the point? Like, this is cool looking. What's the point? And, I think young designers mess up on that. But I think even agencies sometimes mess up on that. Like, I've seen agencies create stuff to impress other agencies and to get addies and to get awards and to like really impress other creatives with how cool and innovative and minimalist or whatever, super cool design, but totally missing the point. True. And I think that's really important for people to realize that, when it comes to design, finding the person that does the coolest stuff is not always the best strategy. It's not always the best play, because it might look cool, but it's got to have a purpose. It's got to align with a lot of things. And so as you moved into, marketing and planning and, then even with branding, share with me your, the difference you see between design, branding, and marketing.
I think the bridge to that is the brand strategy, like you mentioned, and having the story as our differentiator, right? Because nobody else has our story. And that's what a lot of people are missing. They don't document their story. They don't share their story consistently. And that was kind of where the rubber met the road for me. Is like I read Donald Miller's story brand book. I read Ultimate Sales Machine, and I saw the merger between the two. And I saw an opportunity to kind of create that bridge. And it's really your purpose, right? When you build a brand around your purpose, what your archetype is, what's your story, what's your why, Who's your niche? Who do you want to help most? What are their needs? Who do you not want to help? Who are the people that you're like, dude, stay away from me? This is what most businesses miss out on. Is just that one element in itself is like, who do I not want to help? I don't want to help the person that's like, I'm just looking for somebody cheap that's going to abuse me, that's going to look for the best deal, and they're going to go on to the next person. I want to repel those kinds of people, right? So incorporating that. So that's why I created the purpose-driven branding blueprint. And then that tailors and moves right into the purpose-driven marketing plan. And the marketing plan is built off of Alan Dibb's book, the one-page marketing plan, but I've kind of expanded upon it. And so now the two really complement each other, where it goes into your prospecting phase, your lead phase, and then your customer phase, and how you deliver that experience through all those phases. And so incorporating design into that makes it a lot easier when you know, okay, hey, I'm the rebel archetype, right? I know I'm going to have darker colors. I also have the creator personality as a designer. So I'm going to do something that's more artistic, maybe a little more edgy, a little more creative than the average person. I'm probably going to use some neat AI images or something like that. And so being able to incorporate those elements through sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste, right? All of those five senses is something that I've gotten really good at just from doing it. I mean, I've done it over 5,000 times now. So I think hopefully that answers the question of kind of merging the design world of content strategy, right? Getting my certification through digitalmarketer.com. And, you know, it's Mark DeGrasse's amazing certification program that he does at Digital Marketer. I'm actually learning the content strategy process on top of my existing marketing strategy process. It's like, oh, when I first saw the content strategy course, I was like, oh, I don't need that. I've been doing content marketing and YouTube videos and social media marketing, and I know all this stuff. And then all of a sudden I watch his training and I'm like, dude, I don't know nothing. That's the danger that we fall into as entrepreneurs, especially when we get into these, 15, 20 years in. You think you know it all, and you think you figured it all out. But dude, when I watched that certification, I was like, I don't know crap. Like I thought I knew a lot, but this guy just dropped some serious knowledge bombs on me and gave me a framework for content strategy. Then I was able to really enhance even what I was doing even more on the
What was the
design
biggest
side.
revelation in that?
I think understanding the content series, the content pillars, and then the supporting pieces, and how he lays it out in that framework, and how, like, if you look at Russell Brunson's book, right, he got health, wealth, and relationships, right? Those are the three categories of all businesses. And so graphic designers miss this. We're in the wealth building business. That is our job. We're here to make clients money. We're not just artists that's here to make something beautiful for them that they can go show off to their friends. We're here to make something make money, bring an ROI, return on investment. And that was kind of the big shift that I had, was like, okay, this is a money making thing. And then within the wealth building, right, it's who am I helping? So for me, it's social impact. So my category is helping social impact entrepreneurs and business owners, right? So there's my content series. Now within that, I can have all kinds of categories. I can have my pillars: nonprofits, for-profits, the different types of, they're helping at-risk youth versus helping domestic violence versus helping homeless, right? Or diabetes, right? Whatever the cause is, I can have all these pillars, and then there's supporting pieces that tie up, and they all connect back to social impact marketing, which is why the Love Gangster was born.
Yeah. And so, when you mentioned both the strategy and the archetypes and all of that, and that alone is a podcast. That's a course. I mean, that you can go really deep with that, and finding somebody that understands that is super valuable. And so when it comes to brand strategy, what's the difference between that and having a marketing plan?
The brand strategy is the first layer of your foundation that gives you the ability to create a message that is consistent, cohesive, and not just visually, but, auditorily and in all the different ways, right? Like real estate agents bake cookies in houses, right? That's part of building a brand. So that kind of builds the brand strategy, gives you your foundation of like who I am, what I do, what I care about, what's my story, what's my differentiator. And then you take that and you use that as like, hey, this is the message that I'm going out here and saying that's in alignment with my story. And being able to take the two and have those two pieces kind of stack as the foundation for your marketing. If I'm going to go out there and like, what happened to me, and I watched this happen probably 3,000 times, is I was like, okay, let me look at my competitors in town and see what they're doing. And you imitate and copy and clone, as Russell likes to say, all your competitors. And you find a piece that you like from this guy, and you find a piece that you like from that guy. And you try to put your personality on top of that in there. And that's what my approach used to be. Now I've kind of forgotten everybody else's. I don't really care about my competitors. I don't really spend any time looking at their stuff because it really doesn't matter. And I am firm in my foundation of, I know what my story is. Nobody's got a story that you guys heard like mine. It doesn't exist. It's happened once in all eternity. It'll never happen again. So that is a really unique differentiator that I can tell over and over and over again. Nobody has the niche that I'm going after in terms of the way that I'm helping speakers, authors, but not just speakers, authors, and coaches and business owners and entrepreneurs, but social impact type of people, right? And so that gives me the unique approach. And then being able to communicate that with the messaging strategy of the Rebel as in a creator, like, hey, we are creating content, we're creating brands, we're creating websites, we're creating marketing campaigns and ad campaigns. Like, we are a creator agency. And so that's really helped me kind of create those two foundational layers. And I've done that with every single client now that I work with. And there's been very few, it's more of an exception. I really won't work with anybody anymore if they don't have those two layers below them built, and that they're solid, and that they know them inside out and backwards, because it's just going to make it too difficult. They're going to go out there and put out inconsistent messages. And like, if you're a premium brand and you're out there offering discounts, I see every freaking premium brand doing, or not every, but I see a lot of premium brands doing this on Black Friday, where all of a sudden they're like this high-end premium brand, and the next thing you know, they're like half off of this for Black Friday, or 70% off of this course for Black Friday. I'm like, you just ruined all of your credibility and your brand consistency by doing
so
that.
For the small business owner, I love what you said about you don't care about your competition. Does that work for everybody?
I'd say so. Yeah, because you can't. I mean, you can look to your competition for inspiration, but you have everything you have, and so that's 80% of business problems are personal problems, right? That's the truth of business, and it's probably more like 90% of business problems are personal problems. But if you look at most businesses and most people that are running those businesses, they're not clear about their own identity. They're not clear about their purpose. I can't tell you how many people that I've worked with, I'm like, hey, so what's your purpose? They're like, I don't know. And I'm like, my purpose is helping at-risk youth and restoring broken families. I'm very clear about that. And so if you're not clear about your own identity, you're going to just start looking for other people to get validation and get ideas and get inspiration. Everything that you need to build the most amazing brand ever is already inside of you. You have to go in. It's not about going out. And that works in your personal life and your professional life.
And so for the landscaper, or for the hairdresser, or for the roofer, or whatever, I think that's applicable for them. Looking at that, I think it's definitely wise to understand the brandscape, is what I call it, is kind of looking at what else is out there, what are they doing. And I think part of that is, for one thing, to make sure you're differentiated from them, to zig where they zag. What are they doing where they're messing up, or they're not serving their customers well, where you can do better. So I think there's super high value in understanding your competition, but not saying that you're going to replicate what they're doing, because the things you've shared, the story's different, the background's different, their purpose is different, their passions are different, their motivations, their core values, all of that is different. And so you can't just take that template and put it over your own business and expect to have the same level of success. You'll find yourself like I'm doing every single thing that they're doing, and yet I'm failing. Well, it's because you are not them, and you are created to follow your own path and your own journey. And that's where finding somebody that is not just a designer, that is not just going to make it pretty, use cool fonts, make it like Apple, make it like, but it's somebody that's going to actually dive into the brand strategy and get a lot deeper with it and understand what that is. And so, once they've got that identity together, and once they understand who they are and who they serve and what they solve and all of that, what are some of the important things when it comes to, not guessing with their marketing strategy? What are some of the steps that you see yourself taking with clients, that you see that businesses need to take to not be guessing at what they're doing, to actually have some sort of a plan?
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to marketing, I ask every client now that I meet, and every person pretty much that I meet in any kind of business sense, I say, hey, do you have a marketing plan? And they're like, no. And it's crazy. 99 out of 100 companies, probably 998 out of 1,000 companies and business owners I talk to don't have a marketing plan. Like, you have a business plan, and it's like, that's like a 50-50, right? And I'm like, wow, I can't believe there's so many. No wonder the rate of failure is so high, because you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail, right? And so I ask them, do they have a plan? And if they don't, that is a really key area to start. And so some of the things that I walk them through is like, where are your ideal dream clients congregating? And some of them don't even know who their dream clients are. So I got to go back to the branding aspect and clear that out first. But on the marketing side, once you know who they are, then you can go out and actually say, okay, this is where they're congregating, right? They're hanging out on Facebook, or they're on TikTok, or they're on Reddit, or they're on Google search, or they're on YouTube, right? Understanding the places where they're congregating so that you can drive traffic to your assets from there. And then once you drive them to that asset, what's the offer, right? And I was listening to something yesterday. Who was that yesterday? It was a really good video that I was listening to. And it was like, oh, it was Russell Brunson. And he's like, it's either the hook, the message, or the offer. It's only three problems in every business: the hook, the message, or the offer. Hook, the message, or the offer. And I'm like, that's such a great point, is there's always something lacking. And so a lot of people have terrible hooks, right, at the top of their page. They don't have a good story brand, right? The SB7 framework is how I the implementation of my marketing plan blends into the SB7 framework. It's like, cool, you have your brand story, right? You know who you are. The hero, right, which is the client, meets the mentor, which is you, or the guide, right? They give them a plan. They call them to action, and that plan results in success or failure. That's the SB7 framework. So walking clients through that journey and helping them see that their clients need to take their clients on that same journey, and laying out their story on their website like that, and then having that offer that most people think that they can just like run Facebook ads or run Google ad campaign, and they're gonna spend $10,000 their first month, and they're gonna make $100,000, and it just doesn't work like that. Especially nowadays with the competition and the prices of ads, it takes a long time to acquire those customers, and the people that are going to win are the ones that are willing to spend the most to acquire customers. So if you have a client that's worth $1,500 to you, and it costs you $1,500 to acquire that person up front, that might be what you have to do, right? You may even have to spend $2,000, but you're going to need to create something in your services where you can actually add the value stack right in there, where you can take that from $1,500 to $3,000 or $4,500 or $5,000. And so that's what I help clients walk them through on the marketing side. Is like, okay, this is your initial first time offer, right? It's a first time offer, but then what is your next ascension of that? Where are you taking them from there? What other services they can provide? What other services providers can you collaborate with and say, hey, I'm going to send them over this way and get a referral fee? Ways to look at how you can increase the recurring revenue, the lifetime value.
So what's the DNA of a good offer?
That's a great question. So I would say, I mean, you follow the Hermosies, and what the guy that wrote the book before Hermosi, I'm forgetting, it's called Irresistible Offers, Mark something. And having an offer that is so good that you can't say no to, right? Something that takes away the fear, because what stops people from moving forward is the fear of loss, right? The fear of losing money, losing time, having some sort of drama or bad relationship, getting burnt, right, by somebody. And I did a video on this like 6 years ago on my YouTube channel. That's super embarrassing. People can go look it up. But there are three things that stop people. They don't like you, they don't like the product, or they don't like the service. And so the product or service. And so once you understand that, your irresistible offer needs to be something that gives them a little taste of what you're doing and leads them to their next problem, right? So a great example of that is I have an ebook that I just finished. It's called Invisible to Iconic, right? I'm giving that away for free, right? So they don't have to pay anything, not even shipping. I'm literally going to eat that cost, $8 to $10, whatever it's going to cost to ship it out. And so that's going to be an irresistible offer where they can learn all the strategies that I have just around branding.
Yeah.
That is going to create a new problem, which is like, okay, now how do I implement this into my marketing, which is going to lead them back to my program. And so that would be a great example of what I would consider an irresistible offer, of giving something completely away for free just to get their email, to start building that relationship with them. And so that's what I would consider kind of the DNA of an irresistible offer, is having something that is low ticket or affordable or irresistible, that they can not have any risk, that they're not going to, even if they buy this, they invest in this, putting a money back guarantee. Alex talks about this a lot, of having that money back guarantee, or just any kind of guarantee on your product. Hey, if you don't like it, I watched a guy years ago on stage. If you buy a ticket to my conference for, I think it was $299, and you don't like it, I'll give you $5,000 at the end of the conference. You can come up to me and I'll give you
Wow.
$5,000. That's an irresistible
Wow.
offer.
Wow. That's confidence in that he's going to develop, give him so much value that there's no way they'll take him up on that offer. But that's how confident he is in solving their problem. The whole reason they came to the conference. Now you had mentioned, post offer, once they take that initial offer, the ascension. Talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah. So the ascension would be like a great example for me. I have the ebook that people are downloading and buying, right? Or not buying, but I'm giving away for free. Then from there, they're going to get offered to check out my video marketing workshop that I spent 2 days producing. It's over 16 hours worth of content. And I'm going to offer that at a low ticket, probably $27. I could easily sell that for $9.97, but I'm going to offer that for $97 or $27, something like that. And so I'm going to offer that at a really low, irresistible rate. And then once they see all the AI tools, all the strategies, the content strategy, the branding, and walking them through all that, the next problem is going to create, well, I see how much work all of this is. I don't want to do this all myself. I just want to hire these guys to do it because they clearly know what they're talking about. So I'm going to hire Video Marketing Vault to come in and produce probably a video a week for me. And so now if they buy a video a week from me, I have an offer going on right now for the first 10 people that sign up, and I'm already at 6. For the first 10 people that come up, it's $2,000 a month for a video a week. That's $500 a video. And they get added into my coaching community. They get all these other perks and memberships and stuff like that I'm giving them as part of that offer. So $2,000 a month for a year. Now all of a sudden that one client became a $24,000 client to me, right? So that's the ascension that I take clients to. And I've done that on the agency side with my branding packages and website packages and ads packages. I have layouts for all of those things in everything.
Have you
that I
taken
do.
clients through that process? What does it look like for a client that is not you or doing design or whatever? I know some designers that might be listening to this, and some creatives and some branders, obviously are getting some head smacks of how they can, create their offers and grow their clientele. But what about for some of the people that you've helped? Have you taken them through this process, and what does that look like for them?
Yeah, so the way I break it internally, the process that I take them through, although I have the marketing plan, and on the plan it's, lead or prospect, lead, and customer, I have a 4-step process that I walk them through over 4 sessions. Branding, which is that first session that I do. Visibility, right? Where are they seen? Where are they going to be seen? Where are they not seen? Where they want to be, where do they not want to be seen, right? Visibility. Promotion, and that's where we get into the offer, and I have a kind of a whole bunch of layers to the promotion. And what is their promotion? How are they promoting their business? What methods are they using? What are their lead magnets? Are they using a VSL or a pre-selling mechanism, right? And then conversion, like once you convert that person over, how are you walking them through that ascension model? How do you deliver that world-class experience? How do you get them to refer their friends? What story? This is a big thing because you think about story in the beginning for your brand, but what's the story that you're giving them to go tell? When I had California Printing as an example, people would walk in, they'd sit down with me, and I design right in front of them. They'd have people that would call them on the phone. There were other business owners. They'd be like, hey, what are you doing right now? Like, oh, dude, I'm at this place in Citrus Heights. This guy's literally designing my business cards and my flyers and my whole brand for me, like right now as I'm sitting there. Like, dude, where are you? And like, oh, I'm over here at this place. Can you send me the address? I need his help too. I'm a handyman. And next thing you know, 1 became 3, became 30, became 300, became 3,000. And so I help clients do that. I had a client recently come to me that I walked through both of those processes, the branding and the marketing plan. And we came up with a name for him. He's a 3rd generation, I think, pest control guy, either 2nd generation or 3rd generation. So family is a huge part of it for him. He's also a believer, faith-based guy. And so we came up with the name Black Sheep Pest Control, right? He brought the name up, and I was like, dude, we're not going to talk anymore about any other names. That's the name. And so it's Black Sheep Pest Defense, I think, is what we're going to go with, or what he was licensed for. But taking that black sheep concept and saying, we're not going to pull the wool over your eyes. We're all about integrity, serving people, doing things the right way. This is a story. We're a multi-generational family of pest control people, right? You may have known our other family members who are Antelope Hills Pest Control, and now we're starting off with our brand new company. And so being able to say that we're not brand new in the industry, but we have all this experience we're bringing into this new brand that we're going to operate in the way that we want to, and here's our story, right? And being able to walk them through is like, hey, we're going to come out and do an initial inspection, and we're going to educate you as part of this inspection. And most companies are like, cool, yeah, what do you want? Oh, I don't want toxic chemicals. Cool, we'll do that for you. But what they don't know is that those non-toxic chemicals are only going to last 3 days. So they just spent $180 for their pest control thing for something that's going to last 3 days. So he's the kind of person that's going to go in there and educate them and say, hey, I know everybody's telling you. They'll just be a yes person and tell you this is what you should do. But I'm going to tell you right now, the word pest control and the things that we do is we're killing things, right? That is the nature of our business. So non-toxic doesn't really work for pest control if you really want it to be effective. So that's just a quick example of what I'm doing for that guy and just walking him through kind of setting that foundation with his clients. And if he does, they're never going to go anywhere else because he's set the foundation. He's set the expectations for what they can know now going forward that most of his competitors are not taking into consideration.
Okay, so you mentioned the book that you had coming out regarding going from invisible to iconic. Tell me a little bit about that. What makes somebody invisible, and what's the first step to becoming iconic?
Well, the best way to become invisible is just do what your competitors and competition is doing, right? That's the way you become invisible. Just copy your company's or competition's terrible content because they copied it off of somebody else. You're just getting more of the watered down stuff that sounds like, here at blah, 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 we value integrity and customer service. Like, dude, if I hear another person say that, I lose my mind, right? So that's the way you're invisible, is not being you, not being authentic, and not standing out with the story, the values, and probably most importantly, the voids that you had in your whole life, right? My purpose on earth is to help at-risk youth and restore broken families because I came from somebody who was at-risk youth and had a broken family, right? So who is more qualified to do that as their mission and their purpose in their life, right? That's going to come with opposition, of course, and I've had plenty of opposition in my adult years of learning how to restore my own broken family. I had to go through that with my first marriage and learn what that actually is like. And then in my second marriage, it almost happened again until I got my head on straight and was like, okay, this is on me to take care of. This is on me to fix. I gotta do the deep work within myself to figure out how to do this. And so to become iconic, you have to become consistent, is first of all. You have to be able to be positioned as the authority and as the thought leader in your space. And you can't do that without content marketing, whether that's blog articles, videos, podcasts like this. Like, this is the way Volpa has become iconic. I can just speak from my own experience of knowing you for, man, it's probably been 5 or 6 years we've been connected on Facebook. You have done so many epic superhero mock-ups of you as a superhero. It's unforgettable. It's become iconic for that. Every time I think of you in a Superman costume or a freaking whatever costume, like all the different mock-ups you've done. And you've done such a great job with that. And you've been so consistent with that over the years. I haven't seen it as much lately, but that was like your go-to thing.
I got tired
always
of putting my fat head on top of superhero bodies.
So that, to me, as a branding guy, was like, dude, this guy's brilliant. This is such good marketing. And it was something that didn't have anything to do with business. It didn't need to be a business thing. And so that's what most people miss, is they try to make everything formal and everything professional and everything corporate and try to make themselves look bigger than they are. Just be authentic, be real, be transparent, be yourself, be freaking broken, be wounded, be vulgar if you have to be. Like, do whatever is going to be most natural to you. And that's what's going to help you stand up. But be consistent.
So where do people deceive themselves into thinking that they're not invisible, but they actually are? Like, what are some self-deceptions and some mindsets that people kind of are in, and they don't realize how invisible they are?
I think one of the things that people do most often, I hear, especially my clients, is they say, well, I don't really need any marketing. My best marketing is my word of mouth. I just get referrals. My business runs on referrals. I'm like, and what happens when those stop? What are you going to do now? Most people are not diversified enough. So they put all their eggs into one basket. Like, I'm just the Facebook guy. Okay. A great example of that is my beautiful, amazing, talented boss wife who has a business called Crunchy Cottage. I helped her come up with that name. She was going to call it Twin Cottages. I'm like, we're not doing that. We're calling it Crunchy Cottages. We're going after crunchy moms and the granola movement. And so we're calling it Crunchy Cottage. She built her entire business initially for the first 2 years during the pandemic, but on Facebook. Tens of thousands of people following her, millions of people reached on Facebook. And then one day, Facebook decided, and she wasn't doing email, she wasn't doing ads. Facebook decided that they were going to take her visibility and her reach, and they were going to drop it by 70%.
Wow.
And her months went from $30,000 months to $7,000 months. And she was like, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I'm like, this is why we have to
Yeah.
diversify. And so now she's been building her email list. She's been doing those other things. She opened up a store, an actual co-op store where she's got her products in a store. And so she's been able to supplement with those things. She's diversified now, but putting all of your eggs in just Facebook, just Instagram, just TikTok, just LinkedIn, just email is a very bad recipe for disaster. And you'll notice here, I left out intentionally YouTube.
Yeah.
I would say I would follow the same advice and not go only on YouTube. But to be honest, YouTube is such a powerful and untapped beast of a marketing channel for businesses, and 99 out of 100 businesses are not using it. It's silly. It's seriously silly that they're not on there. Even if you don't like creating videos and being on camera, doing faceless videos, you have to do something with YouTube, because the quality of the leads and the quality of the people that come from YouTube, people who are watching YouTube, who take action, who like what you have to say, who resonate with your message, your story, and your content, they'll be the best clients. You will never find, not even word of mouth. Like the clients that come to me, word of mouth, they're like, okay, well, tell me about it. Well, what about this? And they still are like, want to have some back and forth negotiations and objections. On YouTube, they come to me and they're like, cool, what do I sign up? I want to hire you. And I'm like, what? Really? It just happened to me. Guy paid me $2,500 to teach him Mid-Journey. And I'm like, dude, this is the easiest money I've ever made in my whole life, was going in on YouTube.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it definitely is something to consider, especially since it's the second largest search engine. I mean, it's, people are just all over YouTube for anything they need to learn, anything they need to study, anything they're curious about, anything they want to be entertained by. YouTube is a place to go to find that stuff. And so definitely, consider that in your strategy and what you're doing as well. So you mentioned early on, at the pretty early on in our discussion, the love gangster. Tell me about what in the world is a love gangster?
So a love gangster is somebody that goes out there and kills people with kindness. Somebody that actually goes out there and does random acts of kindness. Somebody cuts them off instead of flipping them off or yelling or pulling their car over and getting in a fight. Someone that blows them a kiss or that gives them a heart, or that freaking sends some positive vibes that are out there that way, right, with their hand, or says I'm sorry, right, and says, hey, my bad, right, and that does the opposite of what most people are doing, is acting like children. Most adults are pretending to be adults. They're acting like children. So going out there and giving more love and light to the world, donating clothes, giving that money to the guy that's standing on the street that looks 28 years old, who should have a job, but's holding a cardboard sign that says anything helps, and giving him money anyway, because who's going to become poor by giving? It doesn't happen, right? So just becoming that giver, becoming that servant person that goes out and serves people versus, taking things from people. Bob Berg's Go Giver is a really great influence and inspiration for me. And so that's the concept of how it came to be. Adley, but some people will probably know who she is. She's huge. She's one of the top content creators in the world. I met her about a month ago, and she was telling me, all I do is take chickens and put them in the bathtub, or take tampons and put them in the refrigerator. I just take two things that don't belong together and I combine them. And I'm like, huh. So I come home from that after taking her to lunch and hanging out with her, and I'm sitting there listening to the Steve Miller Band song Joker. And he's like, some people call me the space cowboy. Some people call me the gangster of love. And as soon as those words came out of his mouth, I was like, oh, dude, that's me. And I'm like, I've been obsessed with mafia movies. I believe that if there are past lives, I was a mafia boss in my last life. Me out, and I used fear in my last life. And I knew I've been down the road of fear and making people fear me and fighting and doing all that. I've been down that dark road. And now I use light and love and Jesus and faith and joy and all the fruits of the Spirit to lift people up, lift communities up, lift entrepreneurs up. And that is the concept of love gangster. So I'm trying to create more love gangsters in the world. They're going to go out and build a movement of just killing people with kindness.
So the origin of taking that step of launching Love Gangster. I know you got the name for it from the song.
Yep.
What were some of the other triggers that got you to actually, move? You're a brander, you're a designer, you're a marketer. You help people with videos. What transitioned you into pursuing that new direction as an offshoot of what you already do?
Well, so I've always looked up to Mr. Rogers. I looked up to a lot of the people who were on children's television, PBS, Reading Rainbow and Lamar Burton and all that. And I looked up to those people who were educating and helping kids and helping youth, and that was in line with me. I even bought the red cardigan. I have the Mr. Rogers socks, and I was going to do a thing called the Mr. Rogers of marketing. That was my
Yeah.
idea, and it's just something about it. I'm a nerd. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm a nerd, but I got the
Yeah.
rebel in me, right? I'm tattooed. I'm a little more edgy. I skateboard and dirt bike and rock concerts and metal shows and all that stuff. And I'm not the clean, polished,
Yeah.
Christian guy that most people see as Mr. Rogers. So I needed to find something that was more me, that was more authentic. And then when and it was all in God's timing. When that name came up, I was like, "There's the mafia boss, the gangster." Like, don't mess with my family kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
concept and my whole upbringing. There's kind of the bad side, right? The conspiracy theories, the gambling, the brass knuckles. Like, there's the dark side, but then there's the light side and the love side
Yeah.
of me, which is what people remember me and know me as. Is like, you just have the biggest heart. That's what people say. Like, I don't know if I could ever love people the way that you love people. And so I have that side to my personality, and that's what I want to grow. That's what I want to nurture. That's feeding the two
Yeah.
wolves, right? And so I want to dive deeper into that and become more of that in my life. And so having the inspiration of Mr. Rogers, the love, the kindness, and the joy and pouring into the kids, that's what I needed. I needed that archetype and that avatar that was authentic to me. And it was Love Gangster. And as soon as it was when I heard what my purpose was in the world, I freaking, my friend told me, "Oh, it sounds like your purpose is to help at-risk youth and restore broken families." I just started
Yeah.
bawling. It was the same kind of moment for me when I heard Love, the Gangster of Love, and Love Gangster. And my wife was like, "Dude, that's
Wow.
you right there. Like, that's
Wow.
so you." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So that kind of just helped close the loop on social impact
Yeah.
entrepreneurship and what is my character, what is my
Yeah.
persona as the love, as the rebel and the
Yeah. I love
creator.
that. And so you felt like it was a something was missing, a part of your identity was still kind of out there that needed to finish the puzzle, and Love Gangster
That's right.
became that. That's amazing, man.
That's right.
Congratulations on that. And so, if people want to,
Thanks.
learn more about you, you mentioned the book that you have coming out. What's the best way to get a hold of you, get a hold of the book?
Check me out on YouTube. YouTube, Adrian Boysel, ADRIAN BOY, S as in Sam, EL. And I'm on there on YouTube. You can find me on LinkedIn as well and on Facebook. My website is adrianboysel.com, and we're working on something pretty big. I'll probably create something just for your listeners. We'll do like /Headsmack, but brandbutler.ai /Headsmack. When that's
Awesome.
ready, I'll make that page specifically for your people. It's a brand tool that I'll be able to give away for free just to your
Awesome. Thank
people.
you so much. Adrian, this has been amazing.
Of
Have
course.
really enjoyed this. Glad we connected. And glad you liked my superheroes with my big fat head on them.
That's
And it
right.
got your attention. But
So
this has
good.
been a great conversation. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey and sharing your head smack moments and the stuff that's happened in your life. And quite an inspiration. Proud of you, man. And keep going. And
Thank you.
look forward to hearing of all the great things that happen through the Love Gangster. Have a good one, man. Take care.
Thank you. God bless.
off thinking. And so I do encourage you to also check out the Future Pro group. Chris, thank you so much, man. This has been awesome.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for that head smack moment.